Let's receive with our warm applause to Joseph Enew. Our next panelist, you have heard her beautiful voice a few minutes ago. Let's receive with another warm applause to Sarah Solstice, please. Let's receive with an applause to Dr. Samuel Lee, please. Our last speaker is a prominent advocate for personal growth, spirituality, and modern health practices. Through his work, he shares insights from his journey overcoming addiction and illness, aiming to inspire others towards better health and inner change. In his popular podcast, The Life Stylist, he explores topics like alternative medicine, psychedelics, and conscious relationships, empowering listeners to break barriers and to connect to the divine. Let's welcome Luke Storey, please. So this is the second year that Whitney and I are collaborating during South by South. So when she said, JJ, can you help me again? I said, yeah, for sure. And she said, the topic is going to be psychedelics, human optimization, and God. I said, bring it on. And then she said, this is the people that are going to come. I said, oh, shoot. I was impressed. I said, wow. So guys, more than a panel here, it's going to be a conversation. And I hope, first of all, that you have a good time having this conversation, because that's also going to help us all have a good time. Now, like I mentioned, let's put some rules here so that we know we are all in sync. The first one is, this is not a test, this is not a questionnaire. I'm going to drop some questions that are going to be directed to each one of you. Other ones that's just, I'm going to put it there and pick the one that you would like to answer that question. Like we said, this is going to be our agreement. How does that sound? When someone resonates with you, or you're like, good, let's do this. Let's practice to see if we're in sync with something. And feel free that whenever you hear something that resonates with you, great sign. For panelists, like I mentioned, I will ask general and direct questions, and feel free to compliment. Feel free to jump in as soon as the other one finishes. You will hear me not that much, just this tiny bit, but this is mostly your conversation. I'm going to moderate just a little bit. And for the audience, please write down your questions. Write down and take notes as if you would need to share this with someone that you love. Okay? Take notes in your phone. Many of them we will be able to answer, but I know that many of them will not have enough time, which is great. Feel free to connect with them. Okay? Nice. So let's start first of all with this is going to be a question that may take a little longer than 3 to 4 minutes. But the other ones are going to be quicker. So I would like to start asking each one of you, what is a personal story that you have had with psychedelics that is a catalyst in your trajectory or life or career? What's a personal story with psychedelics that changed the path? Who would like to take that one first?
You go ahead. All right, so this is setting intention was, I don't even know, like 10 years ago, Los Angeles, California. I was a party boy. I didn't know anything about nature. The pathway just opened up. It's like a calling. The plant calls you, yeah. So everything just opened up. There I was in Topanga, in Los Angeles, in a forest. And, I took the medicine right away. I started breathing in a way I've never breathed before. Like this ancient part of me just woke up. I started going around just breathing on people. And I could feel everything going on in the room. It was quite interesting. Like this part of me that was asleep woke up. And I could feel everything. And the lady next to me was like giving, like literally like it was like she was giving birth for the all night. And I was really sensitive. I could feel it all. So I asked the shaman, can I go outside for a little bit? And he was like, yeah. And so I went outside, and I didn't know anything about trees. I didn't know anything about nature. And I just started breathing with this big oak tree in Topanga. And all of a sudden, these like neon green matrix lines started shooting out of me into the tree, into the stars, into the forest, and everything was connected through these neon green energetic lines. And I just felt the sense of love, connection, and something just kind of came over me where it was like, I'm never alone. I knew at that moment I'm never alone, and this presence of love just filled me, and it was really beautiful. And that was my first experience with plant medicine. And ayahuasca since then has kicked my ass a few times, and it's beautiful though, like all of that. So that was my first experience.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. Would like to go?
Yeah. Well, starting around 1986, I ingested a lot of psychedelics. So I would have been 16 years old. And at the time, I was addicted to a lot of drugs. And that was just another drug or a number of drugs on the menu. As a means of escape, I would definitely not recommend psychedelics. So I had a lot of harrowing, very dark experiences. Eventually, I got sober, and when I was 26, and in the context of the question and what we're doing here, when I was 22 years sober, and I mean like hardcore sober, meaning no mind-altering substances except lots of coffee and nicotine, as many sober people partake in, I kept getting the call to work with ayahuasca. And so, long story short, after about maybe a year of research and just really feeling into it and checking my intentions and applying a lot of self-honesty, it became clear that there was a path that would serve me. And I think maybe out of all the medicine work that I've done in the past few years, the moment that I might remember the most was drinking the first cup, having some hape, and just having a really deep, present meditation, just kind of waiting for that thing that I hadn't felt so long, and just kind of went deeper into that stillness. Second cup, I'm just waiting for, my eyes are closed, and I remember I'm just waiting for the slightest glimmer of, this isn't normal, you know? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It came on so suddenly. And the first question that I had directed toward consciousness was, am I still sober? Like, am I all right? Did I just cross a line here? And that voice that many of us are familiar with, that comes in different dialects at different times, said so clearly to me, it's like, oh man, I can still hear it. Because it was such a moment of liberation and such a turning point in my recovery. Because I really went out on a limb there. And the voice said, kind of from within, Luke, you have never been more sober in your entire life that you are right now. And I don't know what that means to you, but I got it. You know, it was like, oh shit, okay. And there was so much truth in that, you know, the persona and the intellect and the ego and all these parts of me that are part of me but aren't truly me had been temporarily brushed aside. And I was just in this absolute presence with my creator. And the creator is the very being that provided my ability to be sober in the first place. So it was like a huge turning point for me in my own liberation and my own trust in myself, that I can veer from the path and still remain safe and have whatever I determine my sobriety to be fully intact. Yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Wow. Sarah, you go next.
Yeah. So we were, let's see, I'll go here. We were doing a training of ours in a town called Chalmita, a few hours from Mexico City. And I was just hearing this fire and seeing the fire and the messages coming from the fire. And I had a life of this raging dance in me, and being in nature and being natural in nature, myself in nature, uninhibited in nature, King David dancing before the Lord. And I held a shame about that. And I heard this fire speaking. It said, you are a raging fire. Do not be afraid of it. And your name is innocence. And I said, that was so clear. That was so clear that my name is innocence. What is nature? Nature is uninhibited. It is unclothed. It is in the constant dance, and it is in perfect innocence. And so this experience for me changed a lot of things in my life. I was holding so much in and not really exposing myself literally. And it released all of that worldly veil of what that looks like in this current society. And it just said, your name is innocence. So that was the most transformative, that really turned my expression around. Now I'm free to be that, which also promotes everyone's fire in our innocence to walk with that. So thank you so much. Yeah,
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That leaves us with Joseph.
I've been contemplating which story to share. The one that I'm feeling into right now was this experience around the time of the birth of my second son, who's kicking around here somewhere, Gabriel. And my wife was the last trimester for our second son. She got incredibly sick, had a rare liver problem. It was a very arduous couple of months. And then meanwhile, my personal journey with psychedelics has really been about healing. I did, everything in the world that I could prior to psychedelics, from fitness to nutrition and movement, really trying to fill this hole and really heal myself. But, there was an interesting experience where from my childhood, I had a significant memory gap, about a 10-year gap in memory. And conveniently, I fractured my skull when I was 11 years old. And so the doctor was like, oh, you just can't remember anything because you hit your head too hard. And so there was this sort of simultaneous thing in my psychedelic experience. It's really been about digging in and uncovering this thing that had been holding me back, this sort of hole in my heart, this wrenching, this block I had in my gut. And I should back up slightly. The birth of my first son, it really started to open. It really started to come through. Memory started to come back. And as I was piecing that together, I had this experience on mushrooms. It was about a couple of weeks before Gabriel was born. And it literally, I needed to understand what my wife was going through in the present now. I needed to understand what she was going through. I needed to be there for her. I needed to feel her pain. I needed to connect with her on a deep level. And simultaneously, I had my own stuff. And it put me through. And any women in the room that have had children are going to say, you're a guy. What do you. But it put me through an entire birth process. And it was birthing my own trauma, finally. And it was teaching me how to teach others how to navigate complex traumas as it was putting me through. And I'm telling you, I had to do the breathing. Everyone in the world was there with me, cheering me on. I was getting this incredible birth process as it was showing me my own story, her story, my son's, all the interconnectedness. And a couple weeks after that, my wife wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning, says, hey, I think he might be ready to come. It was a little bit more complex than this, but 12 minutes later, he was born. And I was right there, and it was the most incredible, beautiful birth after months of pain, after months of struggles. And it was just this incredible, I can hardly put into words experience, but it connected me with her, and it connected me with myself, and at the same time, as I had gained a little bit more understanding as what a woman is going through when she's giving birth, what's going through her mind, how the breath is connected to the body, how the sense of safety and security dictates progression. It was really incredibly transformational. So,
wow, thanks for sharing.
For me, when I hear optimization, the word limitless is kind of like synonymous. And so I like to think in terms of frequency. And so my passion right now is 12-stranded DNA. How to embody your 4th, 5th, and 6th stranded DNA, which is your soul, a less dense version of me existing right now. The 7th, 8th, 9th stranded DNA, which some people call archangels, which is a pure crystalline matrix version of me, less dense version of me existing right now. The 10th, 11th, 12th stranded DNA, which is, according to quantum morphogenetic physics, your avatar inner Christ. And so each DNA strand is a bandwidth of frequency represented by a color, represented by a level of mind. And so to really optimize, for me personally, I abide by the one disease model. There's only one disease. And that is a disconnection from your own soul, higher self, oversoul, or your avatar Cristo self. Because from there, the right thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and words, frequency, metaphysics, cause, and then emotions become physics. When I say I am healthy, healed, whole, and complete, literally this sound resonates in the water that I am water, absorbs it, and it goes into the intron potential DNA and the epigenetics code for proteins, which are the building blocks of life, which literally become my body and my auric field. So for me, I'm like really into currently optimizing and activating my upper stranded DNA. Because why? Exactly what Luke said. Because for the liberation of all sentient beings. Because if you can activate, you have the inner Christ within you. It's your 10th DNA strand. Your 11th DNA strand is your Buddhic mind. Your 12th DNA strand is your nirvanic mind. And the language of our potential DNA is sound and light and frequency and symbols. And so I've been semi-obsessed with running these eternal life symbols and these codes every single morning for the last 3 years. And then our DNA projects the hologram. And so we are limitless. And the science and spirituality is now merging. And for me, this particular modality has been the way that I'm intending for the liberation of all sentient beings. Because if I can activate my 12-stranded DNA, then I can do certain things like transmigration, which all of us eventually can. Transmigration, which is take my body with me to a different time-space orientation before humanity actually fell, and talk on these galactic councils and ask them, hey, if this doesn't happen, so what I mean is we can start changing the past, and we can start also intending into a future timeline for humanity, which has decentralized systems where our children can grow up with fresh water and with aunties and uncles and tribe, and decentralized systems that are just and fair. And I think that every single one of us has that avatar within us. And so that to me is optimization, becoming limitless, which we already are. Yeah.
And by the way, he has been very productively obsessed, I would say. Check out his content, it's fantastic. Now, talking about that, and we are at ATMA Church today here celebrating another year that we're doing this together. It's fantastic. So, piggybacking on that idea of if there is one true disease, which is this connection with the divine, and we're starting inserting the idea of divine, I would like to ask maybe both of you, what's your personal connection to the divine? How do you know, or how do you connect to the divine?
You know, what's interesting about, my experience with the divine is that it's taken on, I believe that we have to, it's in some ways highly adaptable. Sometimes I need to find the divine within, sometimes I need to have the divine out there. And I think depending, that's that sort of fluidness and that ability to kind of shift between connections has been really core to my journey, to be able to surrender fully to God. And at other times, in other places, during other challenges, other obstacles, really connecting with that source within me. And so I've found that this has been on my mind recently as a bit of a permission, this ability to see the divine in different ways as we're navigating, and we're constantly progressing and regressing and moving forward and step back, and allowing your relationship to the divine to take shape as it's needed in the now.
What about Sam? I think you got something in mind. If you guys don't know, he created something called the Heart Protocol. In the Heart Protocol, literally people are getting in touch with their highest self and then coming back. So that landing, how does it translate in the world?
For me personally, it's like chop wood, carry water. And I never used to get this before. But after, quote unquote, these peak experiences, I used to think that there was like a level where, and this used to drive me, because I would be like, oh, there's a level where you're just like enlightened. You're just like all the time, you're like Buddha all the time. You're like, and this would drive me. I was like, I gotta get there, right? And really, like, eventually I started realizing, like, you're already there. And even like the Buddha and all, you come back to reality, and that's the bliss. The bliss is in the living. The journey is the goal. The destination is the journey. And in this present moment, chopping wood, changing the diapers, I love what Joseph said, doing the daily practice. That's one thing I never skip, though. Like every morning I'll do a practice where I connect to my higher self. But from there, the bliss for me personally, what I'm learning is, yes, oh my God, Source is feeling sadness through me. Right? I thought you were going to get to this place where there's no sadness. No, it's like, nah, Source is experiencing this. One ceremony, I cried for 6 hours straight. And this is what I started realizing was actually, no, you're already there, and the journey is the goal, and enlightenment is the moment that exactly what Sarah was talking about, where the mind is off and you're just here, and this is the moment, and this is why I signed up to experience the great experiment of Source breathing and living and crying and shitting and changing diapers and through me, through you. And it's God making love of God, sacred energy exchange, everything. God is the energetic infrastructure running through all things and all people. And once I started realizing there's times I forget, and then I'll go back and do my practice and remember, nah, that's God. Everything is God. And so am I. And there's nothing I can do to be separate from God. All things flow from Source. All things return to Source. All separation from Source is an illusion. And when I feel separate from Source, it's okay. I feel that, and I'm learning how to. Patrick taught me something the other day. Like when he was a little kid, he was scared of, like, he saw like a mask of a person, and it frightened him. And what he told me was on Halloween, though, he realized when you take off the mask that it's actually there's nothing to be scared of. Fear is false evidence appearing real. It's an illusion. And then he took that fear and then he made it into his dharma, actually putting on Halloween events, and he moved into that. And that spoke to me on many levels, because it was like, yeah, anytime I think something is separate from God, I have fear, false evidence appearing real. Amazing. Let me lean into that, have grace for that, and literally eventually get to that point where I know all things are literally God is in everything, and deprogram everything that I've been taught that is not. So I feel like the day-to-day is the enlightenment. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Like to riff on that?
Yeah, I could add to that quickly. We hear a lot about integration, and I've looked at what that is and what that word really means to me. And what I've arrived at this point is that in peak experiences, there's a disintegration, like if something is just blown apart, right? So all of these aspects of ourselves are just kind of wiped clean in terms of the slate, right? And everything just sort of comes unraveled, sometimes beautifully, sometimes crying for 6 hours, right? But everything that we perceive to be real in the material, linear reality that we're in right now melts away. And what's revealed are further levels of reality. They're also real in their own light, but if we were to live in those levels of reality all the time, then the diapers wouldn't be getting changed, right? And so in the integration, to me, it's like putting myself back together and keeping the parts that serve me best. And sometimes for me, it's very practical and very specific. I might be in an experience, for example, be given an insight or be given very specific direction on an action that I am invited to take as part of my integration of putting me and my life and my worldview and my relationship with God, my relationship with myself back together. And I've had a number of those where when the experience is over, it's like, I know the thing I'm supposed to do. And then the next day I'm like, no, it couldn't have meant that. I'm not supposed to actually do that thing, right?
And I also think there's a grander and a broader permission, thinking about my folks, my family, my parents, there's an openness available to us in this society. There's a vulnerability available to us that in past generations was more closed. And so I think there's also this acceptance in the social landscape where a lot of people are doing work and we can be more vulnerable, and men can cry, and men can, kind of step down and be human and expose these parts of ourselves. And so, yeah, it's a magical time on earth. There's a lot of pain, but there's also a lot of healing.
Thank you, Joseph. Anyone else who would like to riff on that? Samuel.
Yeah, the Kogi tribe, I believe there's no accident. So all energy is conscious. And which means it's intelligent. And that's how Luke and I were both called to ayahuasca. Like literally the plant can communicate. And literally, I think that we are literally exiting now what some people call 126,500 year cycle. Some people call it the Dark Ages, where Mother Earth and a lot of humanity was cut off, starting with the Luciferian rebellion, which happened after the sinking of Atlantis. And so now we're exiting that age and we're entering into a new age. Some people call it the Golden Age, the Age of Aquarius, 26,500 year cycles. Yuegas is what they call it. And the Schumann resonance of Mother Earth is increasing, which means the heartbeat, the core frequency of Mother Earth is now increasing. Which means as increased frequency and everything living on Mother Earth, whether we're aware of it or not, we have a silver cord when we agreed to come to Earth that connects us to the core of Mother Earth. It's a 12th dimensional silver cord. And so this return cycle, as Mother Earth increases her frequency, then everything on Mother Earth also is going to increase her frequency. You can actually measure this frequency, which means that higher oscillation entrains lower vibration, which means eventually systems that no longer serve us are going to be exposed. Systems that abide by fear, false evidence appearing real. And systems that are based upon transparency, respect, unity, holarchy, not hierarchy, are going to start appearing. And everybody's higher self is going to come online, and they're going to have a choice. Okay, because there's no force in source. For there to be love, there has to be a choice. And so everybody's going to, higher self's going to come online. They're going to be able to see transparently what is what, and everybody's going to have a choice and take what resonates, leave what doesn't. From my understanding and awareness, this is one of the lives that we've all waited for. Many, many other lifetimes, we've been persecuted, we've been martyred, but not this one. I believe that this is the one a lot of us have prepared for. And I call it the most epic love story ever. There's going to be those who choose to oscillate into new systems based on transparency, respect, unity, and trust. Important inflection point in humanity's history. And those people who do that are going to be able to slowly start embodying their soul, embodying their oversoul, embodying their avatar crystal self, and return to source as source wholeness with full incarnational memory of its existence, which is going to expand the original intention of source to experience itself in many different forms and bring back a living record book of itself to expand the knowledge of the one. And there's going to be those who choose to abide by systems that are more dense, right? Systems that are based upon fear, false evidence appearing real. And eventually, over a long period of time, if you consume energy to create energy, consume energy and create energy, you're literally going to be cut off from the source of all energy and return to source, still sacred, through a black hole space dust return with no incarnational memory of your existence, still sacred, still space dust, still part of source. And quote unquote ascended masters who've been able to, how can I say, embody their primal light and primal sound fields are going to be able to use this space dust to create new universes and new galaxies. So all things do flow from source. All things do return to source. All things are bathing in source. But I feel like right now it's an important inflection point in humanity's history where people are going to have to choose eventually what systems they want to abide by. And free will choice is the greatest gift. So that's why I think these plants, like the last scene of Avatar, are coming forward now, right? The Kogi tribe actually just issued a warning. The Kogi tribe, which, Stephen talks about this, like literally they issued a warning to the kings and queens of all of America. And these, they're very highly in tune with Mother Nature. Some of the shamans in that tribe, they literally go into darkness until they're like, I don't even know, they're like 7 or 8 years old. So they're really in tune with Mother Nature. They just came down from the mountain, issued a video saying, if humanity doesn't wake up and the kings and queens don't wake up, Mother Earth's going to be okay, but humanity within 15 years is going to be extinct. This is what the Kogi tribe has said. And so I think but the outcome is, I think, no problem. We're going to get it together. Consciousness is rising. It's going to be fine. But at the same time, I think it's time for all of us to come together, have these events, communicate, wake up, and start forming community and encouraging each other and raising our frequency.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else would like to share on that? Sarah?
Yeah, there is just a supreme readiness right now in our species to accept who we are. And really breathe and settle into that. And I like the reference of, okay, and then of course, here comes the God-given realization, oh, we're supported by what? By everything? And so, of course, that's going to come forth with this love of the mother and the support here with these plants. And I love how society too now, it's like we get this like go team little decriminalization. Oh, it's like here we are. We get to come together and play this little 3D party to support what's going on in the readiness of the species, and also the divine coming through with the mother, rally up. So that's what I feel is happening now, again, with the story and alignment and all of that. It's like, this is the time of awakening prophesied about in the days of old. Right? So here we are. And again, that's why we've gathered today. So this is the culmination. I like to say critical mass was yesterday. So here we are with everything showing up. Indeed, these psychedelics, what do we experience? God.
Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate it. Luke, want to riff on that?
Man, I mean, it appears to me, despite the high contrast duality in the world now, it's just, I'm gonna have to tell you guys how insane shit is out there, right? And maybe in here at times for each of us. But I do see a trend generally over our species of reaching higher levels of consciousness. And what that demands, I think, of individuals, at least in my own subjective experience, is that if I am a willing participant in that evolution, then it's time to reveal those things that are in the way of that happening. And I think that's happening in the collective consciousness, and that's why there's just so much polarity. And some of us, not in a evaluation way of like, oh, we're the chosen ones, but some of us are just called, right, to embrace that evolution. And some of us are drawn to higher levels of consciousness, and some, at least this time around, for whatever reason, aren't. And so I think the prevalence of psychedelics in this kind of reemergence that we're seeing now is the tool that's needed by some to get to the next level. And that's certainly been my experience as someone who was a very dedicated spiritual student, seeker, teacher, meditator, Kundalini yoga practitioner, I mean, all the things. And there were just things within my life story and experience, traumas, PTSD, and so on, that I just could not get to, that were preventing me from ascending to higher levels of love, really. It maybe someday it would have happened, but it didn't happen that way. It happened because I had some help from these plant teachers. And I think that that's reflected a lot in the collective as well, that many of us have kind of, taken our earthly modalities as far as we can go, and there's still areas in which we're stuck that need a bulldozer to come in and just go, okay, enough of this shit. Like, let's heal for real and all go together. And the only way we go together is by each individual soul popping, and enough of those souls popped, and we really do live in a new world. And so it seems like perfect timing to me, if I look at my own subjective experience and ways in which I've grown in the past few years. I mean, it's like it's catching on. There really is an attractor field for people who are brave enough to really face themselves and to truly heal.
Thank you, Luke. We're getting almost to the end of this panel. What I would encourage you, please reach out to them afterwards. Having the opportunity to connect with minds, not only minds, but hearts like this is unique in events like this. I know you know what I mean. So I would like to end up asking each one of you, what is a personal project that is driving you these days, and what would you like to leave the audience with this short conversation? And the way that we here at ATMA, we're creating community, right? Because one talk at a time, one mind at a time that we can open, one heart at a time that we can open. I think we are starting to create, well, like you said, moving into this new paradigm. So let's go one at a time. Joseph, let's go with you, please.
Well, I have two projects. Currently, the first one is Runga. This is my wife and I's wellness experiences, and it's really. It's kind of twofold. There's the human, what I would call the human maximization part of it, which is hyperbaric oxygen chambers and IVs and just getting the body as fit and healthy as it possibly can be. And then the other half of the event is connection, is community, is mindfulness, and more of these sort of more of this free medicine that we all need. And so that's a really exciting event. We do one event per year in Austin. And my other project that's really exciting is called the Psychedelic Coaching Institute. So Paul Austin, who some of you may know, he's a voice in this space. And what I'm doing there is really helping him build some infrastructure for folks that begin to work with psychedelics personally, achieve profound transformation, and want to step into this professionally in the underground. And so we're building courses and certification programs so that they can facilitate healing through preparation and integration in particular, but also microdosing. And eventually we'll have a specialty for high dose experience guidance. But right now we want to really create a scenario where professionals looking to step into the space have an avenue to learn what they need to learn to keep their clients safe. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph. Sarah.
Thank you. So just a few projects that are dear to my heart right now is something that I call the 24/7 Temple Project. And really that's sitting with us daily, just all in a daytime of either 1 or 2 days in presence and working with us with what's there in presence and not leaving it and seeing what comes up and working with anything, whatever that actuality is. Really honoring that archetype that we are, this God that we are, not putting it to any system. I call it the how. We are the how, the house of us. When we come together in the house of us and just sit in presence, how do we serve that? So that's dear to my heart right now. I call it the Temple Project. And also a ceremony that we're holding is a Bufo heart ceremony where we're doing body work, working with sound and working with individuals or very small groups of people and sound and light and the 5-MeO with the heart opener. And that's just blasting lives apart. And it's such an intense, there's not been one person that has come through that protocol that hasn't said it is the most transformative experience of their life. And I know that happens a lot for all of us in these spaces, but every single one of them. And it's just so wonderful to work with that and to be able to offer that. And really, it's such an ease of holding because we get to just be with that one specific person in the body work, in their presence. So it's such an honor. You can ask us about that. And then also we have a facilitator training program as well that we are putting in systems for so that we can have this systematized. So when people step forward and say, I know how to do this, I would like to do this, we can have the structure of the ceremonies to hold and the facilitator training program.
Fantastic, thank you. And I want to make this point. For example, what we've heard from Joseph and Sarah is we are starting to mix the mystical with the structures at the same time, right? So not only on one side or the other one, but getting a blend of both of them. Thank you so much. Let's go with you, Sam.
So where I spend most of my time these days is facilitating a medicine called the Heart Protocol. And it's a combination of 4 different plant-based, but Western medicines, which intend to connect someone to their higher self. And this is under the umbrella, and I've been working with Within and David Naylor. Every once in a while out of, Austin, we'll have ceremonies out here. Been traveling the world because really the intention that's been praying through me for the last 7 years has been for the liberation of all sentient beings in a new global paradigm of mental health. Show me what I need to see, tell me what I need to do. So with that being said, I know it's a strong prayer, but I'm literally traveling all around the world now and connecting with the right people, activating the right people, and there are plans. And we're seeing, everybody's seeing the same thing, which is little healing centers, hubs, cities of light, whatever you want to call them, all around the world on high frequency grid points where ley lines, the brain of Mother Earth intersect. Sometimes during ceremony, people are identifying large crystals underneath the earth. And we're seeing councils of 12. Right, or 13, Divine Mother. And so when energy equals MC squared, mass times not speed of light squared, but consciousness squared. 12 squared is 144. And so what we're really seeing is sacred, when these decentralized systems pop up like a mycelium network on Earth, all over on high frequency grid points, we're seeing that all of these cities of light hubs are gonna be interconnected, communicating, and we can start doing massive grid work, like these councils of 12, channeling in the highest frequency possible onto the ley lines of Mother Earth. And according to quantum morphogenetic physics, if and when 144 of these healing centers all together simultaneously with groups of 12, the potentiality to do a massive timeline shift into a timeline where our children can grow up on free land with aunties and uncles, with fresh living water, with systems that are decentralized, and for everybody who gets to choose, right? Everybody gets to choose. And so that's some of my passion projects, is like creating a new global paradigm in health with little clinics everywhere, like within, and running the HEART protocol. We have the legalization to do this legally. What I mean by that is a private medical association / religious exemption overriding, so we can do this legally now, and to train unite an army of love, create heaven on earth. That is the goal. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Woo.
I can vouch for Sam's protocol. One of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. And interesting thing about it, just to give you a plug, also definitely deep but very smooth. It was really interesting the way he's designed it. He's managed to bypass, I think, the astral realms of crunchiness that one often has to travel through to get to the space. The space. It was very, very interesting and a really easy, integration. So thank you again for that experience. What I do in the world is pretty simple. I like to have conversations with people that have some degree of wisdom and enlightenment and share those. So I have a podcast called The Life Stylist. I've been doing that for 8 years, and it's just one of those things that I was called to do. And sometimes I wonder, how long am I going to do it? And I think, I don't know, maybe I'll find something else to do. And then I sit down with someone and just have a beautiful interaction and a sharing of space. And there I am doing it again every Tuesday. So that's kind of at the core of what I like to do and what I do for work. And I think the biggest thing in my life right now is that I'm writing my first book, and it's a book about existential loneliness and all of the maladaptations that can come from that. And so it involves birth trauma and sexual trauma and addiction and recovery and all the things that some of us people do to get a sense of connection. And ultimately, the solution that's offered in the book are principles that can lead one out of separation into oneness. And so that's a project that I'm just obsessed with and so happy to be involved in, and also quite terrified of because it's quite daunting. But it's going well. And incidentally, it's also something that came to me in a ceremony. I was intending a number of years ago to write a book because that's kind of what you do, right? It's like, you got to have a calling card. So when you go speak, you have your book and you're called an author and all that. And I had that sort of and nothing wrong with that superficial intention of having a book, but I could not motivate myself to write one word. And this went on for like a year. I went and sat in a ceremony with a friend of mine called Harry the Healer. And it was revealed to me that the reason that I was not motivated was because it was a totally self-serving venture, and I'm just not motivated by things that only serve myself. Now, I'm not trying to virtue flex, but it's just true. And so the title of the book, the premise of the book, the whole thing was just like, downloaded, woke up the next morning, I was like, I'm not doing that shit. And Source is like, yes, you are. And so thus began that process. And it's something I can't say no to because I think it'll really help a lot of people. Like the experiences in the book helped me. So that's my current project. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, it sounds like it's like the letter. Write it and deliver it. In this case.
A longer one, yeah.
A longer one. Okay, you got practice with one at least. You warmed up. Nice. In order to finish, guys, first of all, I want to thank very much Whitney Lasseter. I want to thank ATMA Church for another opportunity to do this during South by South. Let's give them a round of applause. And also, let's give an even a bigger round of applause to these 4 beautiful people, please.